Includes one of the newest members of Congress. And we're joined now by Congressman Tony Wied, of course, representing the 8th District here, the Republican. So let's talk about immigration. A lot has happened here in the first few days of the Trump presidency. You and I spoke about this issue back in November after you went to Washington to begin serving out the final part of Mike Gallagher's former term. You told me at that point that you, quote, agree with Donald Trump on the solutions to the problem. You said there needed to be a deportation effort. So with everything that's happened in these first few days, do you have a better sense of what this is going to look like and what it might mean for your district?
Well, I do agree with President Trump, and he was very clear throughout the campaign. I don't think any presidential campaign has been, more available, more accessible, somebody been more detailed and spent so much time explaining exactly what he wanted to do with immigration. And the voters decided they wanted that as well. And, you can't have a country without control of your borders. Ronald Reagan said that a while back. And so I think there are certain things that President Trump is doing, things that I believe in. Of course, finishing the border wall and working through that. There's no question that the Remain in Mexico policy that President Biden took out when he came in needs to go back into place. I co-sponsored legislation to bring that through in Congress. President Trump has an executive order for that as well. That doesn't allow people to come across our border and then apply for asylum. People are just coming across, using their iPhones and clicking a QR code, and then they were gone. If you want to apply for asylum, you need to do it in your country of origin, and that is a big help to make sure that we control our borders and to stop the flow. Because what comes from that immigration and that illegal immigration is, of course, drugs, criminality, and all of those issues. And so, again, I think I'm very passionate about that. And I also co-sponsored the Lake and Riley Act. That passed yesterday, and I was happy to see that, to make sure that, folks that are here illegally, if they do commit a crime, even if it's theft, they get deported immediately.
Well, there are folks also that aren't here committing crimes, that are illegally, and they are actually contributing. You and I spoke about two industries in your district that often see these types of workers: dairy, agriculture, and the meatpacking industry, for example. So what kind of concerns have you heard from the folks that run those industries about what might be happening?
Well, I do. I speak to those industries. That's very important to our district, whether that's meatpacking and dairy and so forth. And, they understand the negative impacts of having a completely out of control border. And I think we need to look at legal immigration and work permits and things like that. But, they all do a great job with their efforts in making sure that folks are legal and, have the proper documentation. And I'll continue to lean into the agriculture and meatpacking industry to make sure that, we're doing what we need to do to make sure that we have the workers to feed America.
All right, let's talk about leaning into that. One of the things you told me when we visited in late November was you were hoping to get on the House Committee on Agriculture. You were able to do that. You're also on the House Committee for Small Businesses and also Transportation and Infrastructure. But being on agriculture, that was something you really wanted to do. What will that mean now that you're on that committee for folks here in the 8th?
Well, look, agriculture is the economic driver, certainly of our district, of District 8 in Wisconsin. We're the largest congressional district for dairy that's east of the Mississippi. We're the 4th largest congressional district for dairy. And to be involved in agriculture, something that I'm not the most familiar with, but I want to take that same entrepreneurial spirit that I've, done my whole life in running businesses and bring that to the committee and understand exactly what the new issues are. What are the current issues that farmers are facing and in order to be an advocate for them? I keep saying I want to put the farm back in the Farm Bill. I want to make, agriculture great again and truly help the farmers and deal with the issues that they're facing right now.
If they're dealing with lack of workers because some of these immigration policies, how do you handle that?
That's going to be through listening sessions. That's what's important to me is to work with the associations, work with the actual farmers, understand what the issues are from a staffing perspective. We have that throughout a lot of different businesses in our district. And, I don't have all of the answers on that, but I want to lean in, I want to learn it, and ultimately help from the federal level.
Congressman, let's pivot. I think your constituents would like to know what you think of the January 6th pardons. We all knew they were coming. This was not a surprise. But did you agree with the sweeping nature of these pardons?
Well, President Trump was very clear, to your point, that he was going to pardon those that were as part of January 6th. I think the overwhelming majority were peaceful protesters. I think, this is a pardon situation. President Biden pardoned many people in his presidency, as have all presidents. And, this is something that President Trump was very clear about. I support President Trump. The voters clearly do support President Trump. And I think, it's a level setting at this point. I think we need to move forward now.
Congressman, the law enforcement, though, has some serious concerns about this. Some of the largest national agencies have come out and raised concern about some of these pardons because you have over 600 people that were convicted of violent crimes on that day, many of them against police officers, including one in your own district from Pulaski, who's only served 11 months of a 37-month sentence. Even members of your own party are a little concerned that they don't agree with the violent criminals and those who committed acts against law enforcement, that they should have been pardoned. What about those folks?
Well, I'm a big supporter of police, law enforcement, and I think that's very important that we continue to show the respect for our law enforcement. We've seen a lot of issues around this country, whether it was in 2020, whether it was in, all the big cities through the George Floyd and all of those types of things, with a lot of, violence towards police where nothing happened. I think people have served time. I'm not necessarily in favor of helping anybody that's hurt a police officer. And I don't know the specifics of each individual case. I tend to trust President Trump. I think the voters did too. And again, I think I'm very respectful of law enforcement, and anybody that were to be violent towards a police officer needs to be held to account and serve time.
Okay, let me ask you this final question then, because there are some close to the president that agree with just that. If they assaulted an officer, they should be serving their time, perhaps shouldn't have been pardoned. J.D. Vance said those who committed violent crimes should not have been pardoned. The Attorney General nominee, Pam Bondi, said she condemns violence of any kind against law enforcement officers. Derek Van Orden, your fellow congressman from the 3rd District here in Wisconsin, said the same thing. The question then becomes, are you concerned that the president won't listen to those close to him when it comes to issues like this?
No, President Trump is a uniter. He has a great group of advisors around him. And I think he's very passionate about this. There was, again, a lot, mostly peaceful protesters there on that day. But, he is somebody that is uniting. He brings people together. He's going to be meeting with Republicans and Democrats. There's nobody that's done it like him as a president. So I believe in him. And again, the voters also believed in him. And we saw that with the votes here in November.
Well, Congressman Wied, we know it's been a busy week in Washington. We thank you for the time.
Well, thank you.